Hello, I'm Gigi Javier Alfonso, and I'm in the process of doing a documentary on gender and multimedia in the Philippines. As I was doing research on multimedia text on gender on the web, I have noticed the lack of materials on gender and multimedia in the Philippine experience. I requested the participation of persons who are doing studies on women, gender, and multimedia in the Philippine setting to be part of this discourse. There are many valuable conversations that I have recorded. They have agreed that this will be shared with others. These are materials that will eventually be incorporated in the ongoing documentary that I'm producing. The questions that I asked were edited out to have uninterrupted discourse from each resource person. This video is a conversation with Dr. Ruby Palma, Executive Director, Quezon City Gender and Development Resource and Coordinating Office, Founding President of Sentro ng Manggagawang Pilipina and Convener of Gender Resource Network. The interview was conducted on June 3, 2009 at the National Computer Center, Quezon City, Philippines.
Okay, the first time really, personally, I heard gender mainstreaming as an advocate of gender equality and as a mentor or a trainer in gender mainstreaming itself was in the readings. First, in the readings from the Western training or equal rights materials, and then from the United Nations conventions, where I went and have been part of the dedication, whether Philippine government or NGO. Now, the United Nations officially adopted gender mainstreaming as a strategy to fast-track the development of women and the commitment of governments, to funding and other resources to help the disadvantaged women in their countries. Corollary to this is the need to ensure the cooperation of men. So in this millennium, these are the two strategies: gender mainstreaming and the cooperation of men, okay, in advancing women's rights and welfare. Now, from this concept, gender mainstreaming, which means integrating gender in all work you do, in all works practically, whether in laws or policy level, whether in the program or activity level, whether in the capacity building, meaning education, training, and the like, and also in mechanisms or systems like statistical system, your management information or MIS, your planning and budgeting system. Okay, let me go nationally and then downward locally. Okay, it's not only the UN-dictated strategies, because we have UN conventions such as the CEDAW Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and we have the UN Platform for Action, which we all did in Beijing in 1995, and now the Millennium Development Goals, the fourth goal of which is gender equality. So all these things, all this convention and advocacy conjured into national laws per country. Okay. Now, in the Philippines, we are lucky to have women leaders who were in Nairobi or who caused to create some conventions, but they were few, and now they're still there. But the main factor, I think, in mainstreaming whatever we learn in conventions in the UN would be the legislative and the national mechanism, the National Commission on Women. So God advocates, plus these mechanisms, and champions in our legislative brought up or developed a law called RA 7192, Women in Nation Building Act. And because of this law, other laws and implementing rules followed with some resolution or mandate each government instrumentality, whether it's a national or local government or a municipal or barangay government, even the official development funds of foreign funders should set aside at least 5% of the total budget. So can you imagine the total budget, including the Malacanang budget or the congressional budget, in to use for gender and development activities or programs. And, talking about which activities are fundable with this minimum 5% would be another matter, okay? And there are schools of thought or conflicting applications of this 5%. Like in one local government, I will not tell the name, the application is 5% of the investment fund. In one local government, which is very small, the application is a total 5% of the total local government fund. In Quezon City, which is not only the largest, I think, but now has been transformed into the richest city, 5% of total city funds would spell out a fortune. And there are several projects, and not only gender projects, to begin with. These are, waste management and the informal settlers. So this really depends, the application of the 5% really depends on the local government official or the national government. Okay, so the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women will be monitoring and skilling the national agencies, including the universities, public universities, while the DILG and the NEDA and also the DBM would be trying to monitor also the local governments. Okay. Now, when it comes to localizing this 5%, Quezon City is lucky to have a mayor who was in Congress and who was a signatory to the gender budget then. Okay, every annual budgeting, or yearly budgeting, the Congress gives guidelines and the local government unit gives guidelines naman to their budgeting officials on what are the budgets, what are the priorities. Of course, the gender budget would be there as a guideline or as a framework, but it needs really the champions within the offices or the local governments and the NGOs outside to realize or get this 5%. Because there are some notions that the 5% should, can be given to the NGOs per se for their projects, And this could be used also by personal department in their ballroom dancing or physical education activities and even livelihood programs. But there are certain criteria. Everybody is into livelihood. When does a livelihood program become gender responsive? That is the skilling, the need for a skilling seminar on gender budgeting and gender planning. Because not all, whether, kasi lang may lalaki at babae na participants doon na equal, pwede nang gamitin ng GAD budget. Okay? The information dissemination on this GAD budget naman is slow. But we are slowly, moving there. We should have champions in every barangays or local governments and universities. Do you know that recently when we went to Alakbay-Aral in Congress and met the, Committee on Women and Appropriations, the NCRFW told us, because they were there, that the Congress has no gender budget. I mean, the present one. And the chair, si Councilor Representative Dasa was so, that's what? We do not have a gender budget? Not even a 5%? So you see, there should be a group, whether that's external or internal, to the organization, and skilled, that should monitor and teach this, mentor. Because if you don't have a gender budget, it doesn't mean that the head of the agency doesn't want to, or it's a low priority. It means that they do not know the idea, the concept, and they need really some skills on how to do that. So in Quezon City, we were the first of the local governments in Metro Manila to establish a Quezon City Gender Code with 3 goals. One is to implement a minimum of 5%. Second is to have a God Council and an office, which is my office now. And third, to have a God plan and budget. No? And I don't know, I think we have reached all, but in terms of the gender budgeting thing, we were so slow. Because if your boss, if the mayor is a management person, like Mayor Belmonte, who headed the PAL and the GSIS, no, and the National Hotel, then what he will say is, okay, give me your program, give me your plan, I'll approve it, and you can add that or account that as gender budget, which means it could go, the gender budget of Quezon City could go up to 100%. It depends. And the strategy is mainstreaming. Because if you have old projects or programs or regular services, and the heads and operators of these programs or departments or services, they have skills and they have their gender glasses. They just put their gender glasses in their day-to-day operation, and gender issues and responses to the issues are integrated already. That is our target. So for now, just accounting on programs alone, we already have around what? 37%, but that's only programs. We do not include infrastructures and people, no? And I think we are on the right track, but the problem always is sustainability and continuous energy, supply of energy and commitment, so that the various leaders, whether they are there or they are new, no, they will be changed, should really believe you first and understand the worth of gender mainstreaming. At hindi lang yan mga God na created ng mga, women advocates or mga radical feminists. This has streamlined already in the UN and in government processes. Actually, gender mainstreaming and gender budgeting are 2 strategies where you can have good governance in terms of disbursing your allocation or budget. Because you will be answering to the needs of both men and women. But again, they will say, this project does not discriminate. It's for men and women. And you need another skill like gender analysis of that project or program to see whether it is really for both men and women. So from a simple advocacy of human rights of women, the entire machinery, globally or locally, really took a deep, study in that and tried to see how this advocacy themes and concepts can seep through in operational terms na daily. So we owe it to them also, I'd like to say that in fairness, but in fairness too, we will owe it to all of you, especially you, Gigi, in education, if these strides or efforts will be sustained, hopefully. You have 2 concerns, no? One addresses the allocation of resources, especially the budget, on maybe administrative expenses, personnel, social services, community, without even talking about gender yet. No? In Quezon City, we do have this allocation and we monitor. That is why I should say that good government in Quezon City is shown in terms of accountability. You know why? We have a mechanism of every other Wednesday meeting, EXICOM. This morning is one of them, where everybody reports the collections, from the garbage to the treasury, all taxes. And there is always a division in terms of percentages. And that is why we analyzed and identified that Quezon City is efficient. Why? Because their personnel and administrative-related expenses is just 15% of total, compared to other local governments, which takes around 45 to 50. And we have been categorized as the richest city for the past 3 years because of that efficiency thing, no? And we doubled or tripled our productivity, even if we really cut the cost of personnel and other contractual workers, no? That is the first issue that you would like to know. Now, the second issue is how much goes to this particular gender-related project where both men and women, boys and girls benefit. We are now, that is the very hard and long process because it means hihimayin mo. No? But 2 years ago, I am happy to say that my office, our office there, or myself and other women advocates outside City Hall are no longer needed to lecture on gender budgeting because it's our gender budget officers who lecture, meaning they have already grasped the idea. But it took a lot of mentoring, one by one, and telling them not to be threatened, you do not like their position, you're only here to make them appear good, something like that. And of course, having salaries less than them. But hindi sila threaten, no? Now they are the ones going to the barangays telling what is gender budget. And they should account already for the percentages. We have percentages now, and as I told you. And this will be easy because there is a gender budget item already in the gender format. No? Before there was none. There's a mainstream format for local government budgeting. And there is another special format for God budget and planning. No? Because of the rationalized planning system, where there will be no segregations already of this, there will be just one format and one reporting. The government from the DBM, National Commission and NEDA, DBM, the three of them, put their heads together for this rationalized planning system. And slowly it's trickling down. But sad to say, the memoranda will always come late, in the barangay. So that nag-budgeting na kayo for 2009, hindi pa signed yung updated, joint memo circular. These are the administrative, yung mga slowness din siguro ng national, yung mga decision makers, But in Quezon City, we do not mind them. We really internally try to advocate, and the word is kulit. You really just have to kulit, because if you do not have the kulits and the champions there, it will, every effort will die a natural death. And the 8 years investment under the Belmonte administration, will not be, sustained or continue. We do not sit on the laurels we receive, We do not even promote. Kaya sabi nung iba, Ruby, bakit hindi pa kayo nanalo ng Kalingpok Award when you were the first? At bakit hindi alam when in fact, you have been invited from Banawe to Caraga to share with them how you did the God law, the God code. The NCRFW uses the Quezon City God code and other God codes as model. You are being visited by local and international, groups, okay, to see how you implement your the anti-vow national law.
You mean anti-violence?
Anti-violence against women. Because having a law is another thing and implementing it on the ground is another thing. So that's what they have to study. And I said, maybe our efforts could be heroic in the sense that being the first, we do not have models. We just tried on, trials, errors, And now, other LGUs around us have this model and also the model of Davao City, which is the first naman in the Mindanao, okay? And Angeles, which is the first in that part. But Angeles is so small, and Quezon City is so big with the, 100 times, yung issues. So that's again the heroic thing there, okay? Being the first with no model, trial and error. And being unique in the sense that the movement for gender in Quezon City and having all these mechanisms started from NGOs, especially our NGO. I was still with the Women in Migration and the university champions and the champions in the legislature then. Councilors Dasa and Biglang Awa were just councilors then in Quezon City. And the NGOs, because Quezon City really is an NGO city. We are lucky to have them. But the sustainability of how many years, to help us and to be speakers without being paid, this voluntary work, this really did it all. Now, In 2004, we were awarded one of the 11 local government units with the best gender practice, gender and men. And in those 11 local government units, it's only Quezon City which has this mainstreaming program that, made us win the award, recognized. The rest would have their anti-violence program. It's thematic. The rest would have a successful livelihood program. But in Quezon City, the title is the holistic gender mainstreaming program. And of course, you were part, Gigi, of our mainstreaming in media and the film. We have mainstreaming in, lahat pinakikalaman namin yung mga job fairs, sasabihin namin sa Peso Iro, how can you integrate gender dyan sa job fairs aside from reporting sexist aggregation na men and women? Can we just let their employers, during the job fairs, gather the employers, we will lecture anti-trafficking at manunood sila ng anti-trafficking kwan? Kasi it's, diba? And then anti-prostitution, and then illegal recruitment and all. So, yun ang mga small successes lang and how we, were first. And of course, a very supportive mayor and bureaucrats and staff, technical staff who are social artists who can imagine, or visualize, what if, and the mayor naman will support to make that what if really, a realized thing.
I would like to acknowledge the help of the Multimedia Center of the University of the Philippines Open University in recording and editing this production. If you have questions and inquiries on the material that you have just viewed, please email me at gigipssp@yahoo.com.